For this episode, the question comes from Alan Lloyd, who asks me, why do I keep saying that enterprise architecture needs to be wider than IT? Because most existing enterprise architecture frameworks do focus almost entirely on IT. Well, the first part of the answer is that anything we're dealing with in an enterprise is a complex system. And complex systems do not have a single centre. Everything and nothing is the centre all at the same time. So if we demand that there be a single centre, we're in trouble straight away. Also, a lot of the key complexity that we face may be outside of IT anyway. For example, a major change for IT in the recent time has been the European Union's GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, which is an item of regulation that's caused massive change right the way across anything that deals with information shared across the net. So we often need to think much broader about the impacts and where they come from, which means we need to start outside of IT. Also, another problem is that IT-centrism completely misconstrains the view of the whole. If we take the classic BDAT stack, Business Data Applications Technology, then in effect what it's saying is that the only things we need to be concerned about are the IT, and it defines business architecture as sort of anything not IT that might affect IT. It's actually like looking upward from the bottom of a well, where the focus in this case is IT hardware, IT infrastructure. But if we were to go above the well and keep on going, we get a very different view than this very narrow view that we get from looking upward from the bottom of the well. So a whole enterprise view requires us to look at the people issues, the physical asset issues, the information issues, many of which can be beyond IT itself, and also what are the real drivers, the human enterprise. Another concern that we have when we're dealing with whole enterprise architectures is what we call fungibility, the interchangeability of things. This is particularly important in terms of disaster recovery and business continuity, where, for example, in a disaster environment, we may need to replace the IT boxes with human processes. Equally, in a process redesign, what we're trying to do is replace human with IT as much as we can. So the things we need to understand how the process works separately from the IT before we think about plugging the IT into the box. We cannot do that if we hold a rigidly IT-centric view of the world. And also there's some interesting cases where we want to deliberately focus on the human side because of issues around responsibility, both in legal terms and in others as well. So for example, in a Kanban environment, often we actually prefer a physical box, a physical rack of cards, because the action of taking a card out and saying this is now finished has a very different feel and a very different commitment and responsibility when we are moving, when we're committing to move something. It has a very different feel when we're doing it in a physical environment from when we do from simply pushing a button. So sometimes we want deliberately to include the human and the physical rather than purely the electronic or the IT. So those are the main reasons. Most of our frameworks are focused on IT, but very often we will need to see the enterprise far beyond just the IT boxes. And sometimes we want to be able to deliberately focus on something else rather than just the IT, where the IT becomes solely the enabler. These are the main reasons why in enterprise architecture we do need to think wider than just IT.